on this first episode of the Alex Henry Foster podcast. With all the honesty and depth we know Alex for, he brings us back to Tangier, where Windows in the Sky was written, shares about his transition from Your Favorite Enemies to his solo project, also talks about the creation of Windows in the Sky, and he gives us his impressions on the first shows of his European tour.
So, hi Alex.
How are you?
I'm very good at yourself.
Very good. I'm a bit tired. I won't lie, but it's a good thing.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit of where you are right now and what it is you're doing?
We are in a little cafe. I won't try to tell you how the pronunciation of the name. We are in Cologne, and we're playing tomorrow. So I'm enjoying a little bit of a day off already. And and I thought it would be a good time to start this little podcast.
It's Alex Henry Foster podcast, yeah, and I know people will really enjoy it. You've had a habit of really bringing people on tour with you through your blogs before, but to see you do podcasts like that, audio, video as well, is a first. So that's really exciting. Thank you very much for having me. It's quite the honor.
It's fun, actually, yeah.
So, you're on tour with your band, The Long Shadows, and it's the first tour that you're doing as Alex Henry Foster. There's a lot of first on that tour as well. 2 nights ago, you played in Dunkirk. You're going to play in Norway, in Sweden, in Denmark. We're also hitting Austria. So lots of firsts, which I think is really exciting. But before we go into all the concerts and what it's been like for you so far.
I was about to jump in, so that's good.
I could feel it. But I would like for you to tell us a little bit about the title of the tour, which is A Slow Pace of Peace to Come. Can you explain what it means?
I think it represents the state of mind of going back on the road, because I wasn't sure when we first talked about releasing Windows in the Sky, my album. I wasn't sure to go back on the road. It was very actually I wasn't envisioning that at all, because just to keep that level of honesty night after night, because it's a very personal album. So, and I was wondering if I would be able to really live those emotions night after night, and to keep that sense of sincerity. And I didn't want to play like the jukebox thing.
Yeah.
That you just dwell into what's working or not. So that was really a challenge for me to say, okay, so first, do I really want to do it? Would I be able to do it? Because that's another thing. Because when I didn't want to be overwhelmed by emotions as well, especially in front of the people.
What kind of emotions?
Maybe the sadness of it all. So I didn't
Given the nature of Windows in the Sky for you, which is about grieving your father.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I don't want to take people hostage of those emotions, because my vision of like playing live is about like that communion, that you're not only giving on stage, but you're receiving a lot as well. So I didn't want this thing to be only about me and my grief and Alex's sadness, and then for people to be either like uncomfortable, or for them to wonder, okay, how should we react? Can we react at all? Can we join the moment? So I didn't want, that's the thing. I didn't want to take people hostages and all that, for them to bother about it. So, but I think it was it was starting with my own perception about going back on the road. So that was the thing.
Yeah, and so those 2 shows like that you've played, do you feel like, what was the reaction of the people? Do you feel like they were taken hostages? What was the comeback that you've received from them as you were on and off the stage?
I think it was great. People are so generous. That's the thing, and we've got people that are so faithful, and they welcomed me in such a way, with such generosity, and I think that it was a record that people, yeah, welcomed, but I think that made their own as well. So I think it changed a lot, the whole thing, and that's why I think it allowed me maybe the freedom to go back on the road and to say, well, okay, I'm not very comfortable, but peace will come as I'm taking that step, that leap of faith. And I realized that people were there to catch me as well. So and so that was the vision I had when we had that opportunity, and the rest of the band were there as well to say, well, is it something that you would like to do? Is it something that that you're okay with? So, and I've been able to feel that wonderful love, that supporting love, and it made me okay. It gave me a bit more courage to do that, because I never been really comfortable playing live, even with your favorite enemies. I never felt like I was, how can I say, I never felt like either like if I belong, or if I was enough. If so, I always struggled with that sensation of being able to be really honest in what you do, and from a night to another, you can only give what you have, and in that matter, I never felt like I had enough. So then,
That you never had enough to give
yeah, or I
people as
wasn't
you were on
enough.
stage. Yeah.
You can, and that's something that you need to. You're fighting against yourself. It's like shadow boxing all the
Like,
time.
before, with your favorite enemies, it was really presented as a band, as a unit. It was 6 musicians, going on tour. But now, it's Alex Henry Foster who gets on stage every night, every single night. People are coming to see you, and no longer like a full band. You're supported by a band, which is quite a massive band this time as well. But how differently does that translate for you, knowing that this time, like, you're really the one in front even more than you used to be before?
I don't think I'm seeing that as me and other people. I never been very comfortable with that concept, and I guess that's why, here comes the long shadows. But I think it's more personal perspective about things, because even though we were a unit before, we were struggling so much, with everything that we had to fight personally, and so now it's even more of a unit, I would say, which is crazy, because then you've got like my name there, but it's really what makes the difference. It's really the fact that we're together, and we're really following each other. It's like a stream of life that's really transcend, whatever name is up front. But I think I could have just like kept hiding myself behind like a band identity, but I think that going up front was also to acknowledge that record, to acknowledge those words, to acknowledge those songs, and to decide that, well, I won't hide anymore, and I need to be out there. And that was the first step. I was talking about honesty at the beginning, and the courage to stand for those words and those songs. But that was the first step for me to say, okay, well, I don't want to hide in the band's concept, or through all the noise and everything, and then I can get away with it. And it's funny, because when you're very, I always been very scared to expose myself, and the band was giving me a perfect alibi to keep acting that way or to keep feeding that with the
But
illusion
now
of
that it's
being really out there. But
Alex Henry Foster, you cannot do that anymore.
yeah, and it's kind of weird because I realized that never been very comfortable doing interviews. So I I I haven't done much, in the
You
past. So
haven't.
so it's very funny now.
You
I cannot
cannot
send
send
away. Yeah,
somebody
exactly.
else. You have to do all the
Exactly.
interviews.
Which,
And,
but also it's part of the process, I
but
think.
do you enjoy
of,
it now? Do you feel, because I don't think it's only about being scared and everything, but I think it's about, this honesty and this courage. Like, do you feel like you found it
I don't
and
think
that
it's
this is
about.
what makes it more enjoyable, if it is? For
Yeah,
you?
I think for me it's not about enjoying or not. It's just about just taking that step again. It's not. I never been very comfortable doing that. Regardless of the context. So it's just like taking that chance to say, okay, well, I'm gonna let's do it.
A leap of faith in a way.
Yeah, and let's do it. It's just because that was the thing when I got with going with that record. That was the biggest challenge at first because I really went under the radar. I knew inside I had to really let go, and I needed to share that record. But at the same time, I kind of, just like by having such a tight context, so I was still.
You mean on the topic or the release that was really under the radar?
But I mean, like just releasing the album, nobody
Yeah.
knew about, no promotion, only in Canada at first. So a lot of people thought like, oh, okay, well, it's very artsy. But the reality was, the fact that I was very, very uncomfortable, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for that. And in my opinion, it was like, it's a very sincere, very honest record, and I'm standing behind it. But I'm not. I'm standing behind the record, but I'm not ready to stand in front of it, meaning like
To
with the people.
present it to the
Yeah,
people. Do
so-
you regret it sometimes? Like, do you think it was too fast, or that you've released it even though you weren't ready? Or
No, there's no. I think that there's no timeline with those emotions. So me, I've got that mentality where maybe it's like my the background, the hockey, that let's go. Once you're on,
Yeah.
and I think that's what really helped me going. Even like with all the tours we did with Your Favorite Enemies, and even if I was like sick every time before gigs, I was nervous. I was miserable. But once I had like the first step on stage, then it was like, all right,
you were
know.
becoming someone else.
Yeah, and anyway, it was too late to be scared. You had to go, and people are there, and you have that wonderful relationship with them, and you need to be, even though you're miserable, even though you're suffering, but you can by having that connection with the people, you can connect, and it's going to heal you for just enough of a moment to share, that live instant. And that was the same thing for the
But-
record. I said, well, I felt like
Right.
people welcomed me as a person rather than just like, okay, so it's like
It
Your
wasn't-
Favorite Enemies singer solo record.
It wasn't only on the artistic level, but it was really on a more personal level. In your
At least
from
that's
the-
how I want to see it.
Yeah, well, but that's great. I
Yeah.
mean, that's very cool because you really poured a lot of yourself
And I
in
think
there.
that's
And
that was the thing. People, it was like really, people wanted to tell me, well, we love you, and we're happy for you, even though it was a very tough record to swallow at first. It's so different from everything we did before, but I think that it was that connection that really makes all the difference, and that gave me also the courage to go from a step to another, and leading up to this tour and everything
Yeah.
we're doing now.
And I don't know, I can't remember exactly where it is that I've read that, but you said at one point that once the music is out there, it no longer belongs to you, only you,
Which is
because
true.
you've written the words and you've composed most of the music, and it's your album. It's on a very personal level for you. But now the album is out and you're touring it. You're doing shows, and do you feel like what has that given you so
But
far?
I think that what really made the whole difference is when I released the record, and then I realized that how people, the generosity of the people in the way that they welcomed me, and suddenly I had like people like magazines calling for interviews, and I was in the charts, and I freaked out, quite honestly. I really freaked out. I was like, wait a minute, this is not how I was envisioning the thing. With Your Favorite Enemies, I learned the process, all the cycles
Yeah.
and everything, and because we were a band,
You knew what to expect.
yeah, exactly. And it was such a machine that
Yeah.
was going on. And but when everything like happened, I wasn't ready at all. And I took like a major step back. I was like, and then I was questioning myself. Oh man, okay, here we go. What can I say? I didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't ready, and all that, and I regret it. I was like, oh man, I did like a major mistake. But in the same time, I started to receive messages from people that really embraced the record, and suddenly were sharing their perceptions, their own feelings about the different themes on the record, and then I was able to. Then I realized, okay, well, I felt like I reacted, even though it was like very, for me, sincere mime. I was like freaking out, but I felt selfish because you cannot release something that personal, and that might translate to other people's feeling, and then suddenly back down and say, well, I'm nowhere to be found. And so when I was receiving those messages and people were explaining what they felt, how impactful it was for them, and how they were like feeling, then I had a huge relief, because I said, okay, cool, this is a communion. It's no longer about like Alex, and it's something that we can feed ourselves with each other. And that's why that was the beginning of that freedom that I maybe needed to keep going, because it was feeding me on a human level
On a
perspective.
personal level, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because
not, yeah.
not only a personal level, but even deeper than that,
Oh.
on the human level. Because it obviously it was personal, but you've
Yeah.
got that connection, that communion with people, and then suddenly it's no longer about Alex. It's
Yeah.
no longer about the guy with the microphone, and that it was us
Yeah.
in a very intimate, but in a very global way as well. And so it gave me a lot of courage to keep going and say, okay, well, and I realized there was more to discover through the
Yeah.
words, through the music, and then slowly it led me to where I am now. But I was frightened by going back on stage, and not only that, I was like, who really wants to see a guy like doing spoken words on strange music about grief and sadness? I mean, aren't we already living in a very miserable world? Who wants to add to, the misery of it
well,
all?
I guess
So,
you probably find a little bit of what you found through expressing these feelings.
yeah,
Which,
it was
might
only
be-
the fear talking.
yeah, well, that happens.
Yeah, a lot.
But yesterday, when we were in Paris,
Mm-hmm.
you were on stage, and in the middle of the set, You took the time to thank two people who had been there for you when you started writing Windows in the Sky.
Oh well, they were
Around,
there way
like-
before. They were there
No,
way
but
before.
this is what I'm saying. They were with you 2 years ago in Tangier. They're the ones who really welcomed you. And then you started writing what
So you're-
eventually became
So you
Windows
really,
in the
you,
Sky.
you really want me to go all emotional now?
Well, we're talking about honesty,
Yeah,
so I
exactly.
think that's the
Yeah.
way to go. Unless you don't want to go there and we can stop,
No,
that would
no,
be
no,
all
no,
right
no,
too.
no.
But
Yeah, well, it's been a long journey for me. I think when we after we released Tokyo Sessions with Your Favorite Enemies, I was really tired, really. I was really like burned out in many ways, and because the band is like it's friends that went through their own issues, but in a collective way, and building. We're entrepreneurs, and we're giving. This is life to us. This is not like a sideshow. This is
No,
really
yeah.
who we are, and we're giving everything. So, and it takes a lot from you. And I realize that it's a wonderful thing. It's amazing. And but at the same time, it's very easy to live all your personal crises in a collective universe, and which is good too because you have the comfort of everybody else. You've got like that support, which is amazing. But at the same time, it's very easy just to
just hide those feelings somehow.
yeah, and just to go from a thing to another.
Yeah,
It's because you're in
exactly.
emotion.
to just push them aside without truly living. And
Yeah, and I didn't know how damaged I was until everything stopped for a moment, and I was supposed to go there with the perfect alibi to say, well, I'm gonna write the next record. I need to have like different perspective, to hear different sounds, to see different colors, and so that was the perfect setting for me because I was like, great, I will. Yeah, on the side thing was like, yeah, I'm gonna think and muse about like my father's law, my father's passing, all different issues in my life, and yeah, but that's gonna be like only like the sideshow, but the main thing would be like writing the records.
Yeah.
But I realized when I got there that I was such a mess. I wasn't able to do anything for a while, and I kept writing for myself, and there was so many raw emotions. It was very violent in a way that it was so personal and without veils. It was just like perfect and very vivid reality and honesty, and it was like some kind of a mirror that I was like cleaning up, and I hated everything I was seeing. I hated the reflection of the man I became. I hated how I was reacting. I realized I wasn't happy. I realized I was miserable. It was a very tough period, but at the same time, by allowing myself to be honest with me, even though it was a bit dramatic, because it maybe it had to be, I'm the kind of person that needs to it needs to
You're very passionate,
but
so
it needs to
it needs
I need to
be
feel the pain
extreme. Yeah.
to think that it's true, which is complete nonsense. And that's how I'm wired. But on the other side, I've been welcomed by two wonderful person who probably saw me, because you need to understand in Tangier everything is like on the terrace and everything is outside, and it's all about like talking with everybody and those connections, and me, I didn't know that at all. I was like, I thought I would go in the remote place in the world where I can only be like
You could be
miserable
on your
on my
own.
own, and just like feel like just like that self-pity. I can feed that until I'm just like I vanish. But the reality was completely different, and I think that I owe them so much, because they only like they welcomed me as a person, and I was And when I got there, I was like so confused, and I had a lot of anger about so many things, and but they just welcomed me in such a very like
Human.
yeah, human way, but there was a lot of affection, and it was really it was about giving.
Yeah.
And it took me some times to to just to say, okay, well, to accept that and to receive that and to say, well, it's good.
Yeah.
It's really it
I can
feels
have a
good.
little bit of that
It
too. And
feels
it's
good.
okay.
And then after
And
that,
I guess for you, because you were saying that you really needed to feel the pain to know it was true. So to let something that felt good in must have been quite a
yeah, because
struggle
it
for
was the
you.
only thing that I knew.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to kind of numb everything and to keep going, because you need to keep going, you need to keep pressing on, and especially in a community context or
Yeah.
concept, you're imposing yourself. Even it's not even like the community itself, it's you're imposing
Yeah.
yourself so many lies, because you need to feed this big illusion of your life. But when I let go and I received that for really what it was, then that was the beginning. That was the healing process. That was the beginning of it. And then and even yeah, I can feel it in my writings that suddenly everything kind of changed, and it was paving the way to what what I became, basically,
Yeah.
because it was a complete transformation. Just the way I was allowing myself to be, and allowing myself to feel, and it was okay. I didn't feel like I had to be someone else,
Yeah.
or I didn't feel like I had to pretend anymore. I didn't feel I had to put that costume again. That you're just like, it's like everybody, when you're looking around and you're seeing like people like just like being like super miserable, and then they're taking a selfie, and then they're all smiling, and then when the selfie is over, it's just like
Like
they
the
got back to.
hypocrisy of it all.
But it's
And
not even that. It's just like it's nobody wants to to be exposed for what they're feeling. It's not even about be exposed for what you are, because at some point it's very difficult to figure that out. So that's why I was slowly able just to reconnect with myself and just say, okay, well, who am I now? 12 years after the beginning of this wonderful history and story with the band and the friends and everything, the label and the touring and the studio times. So I just thought, okay, well, so what does it mean just to be Alex? And I think that in that context, it was so good, because I was not only that, but I was able to meet other people, other like artists, photographers, writers, local people, old people, like very generously talking about different authors and what they've been through, and talking about Tangier. So slowly I realized that I had to just to let go and just say, okay, well, this is really what I need,
yeah.
because
And
this is what's going on now, and I need to embrace it.
yeah. 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 But do you feel like, because your favorite enemies was really about the community, and you've talked about it a lot, and there was a huge emphasis on it, and it's still there with Alexander
Oh man,
Foster, with your solo
it's at the
project.
center of it.
Yeah, I
Even
know
more,
totally. But
even
do
more
you
than your favorite
feel like
enemies.
going outside was something essential to who you've become and to the realization somehow of Alexander Foster and the Long Shadows?
The perfect answer would be like, oh yes, obviously I needed that, but the reality is, at one point, and it's maybe it's sad to say, but it didn't matter, because I was such a mess. I was so damaged that it wasn't about the community anymore. It wasn't about the band anymore. It was about just me, like wondering, do I still want to live? I was at that point, I was like, I was gone in such a way that I was like contemplating, like, is that life? Is that a life? Is that something that I want? And it
Is
felt,
this how I want to
and
live?
it's
Yeah.
it's it's strange and it's a cold place to be, and
Very lonely
even
place
though
to
you want to
be.
deny it, it takes a moment, just a little bit of a perspective to say, well, yeah, I was on that edge, and I was like looking for reasons, to fall, and but what really kept me, talking about the community, what really kept me from doing that crazy or that irreversible decision
Yeah.
was my friends. I said, well, oh, I don't want them to live with that, because I knew what the sh- it would be like, quite a shock, because like, hey, we never saw that coming, and that was very, very, you know, like, yeah, it was weird. And what was crazy was, Chester took his life, and then I was starting to receive some messages from friends who were like, and fans of the band who was like, we haven't heard about you for a while. Are you okay?
What's going on? Why?
So even that was like, okay, well, wait
Somehow
a
of a
minute
wake up
here.
call.
Am I? I'm way too far now. I need I'm
Yeah,
too
because
close to the
this
edge. I
isn't
need to step
something
back. I
that
need
you
to step
had
back.
addressed before, like how you felt in the moment you were feeling it. It wasn't addressed, it wasn't out there. You hadn't talked about this much. So for people to notice and to just like be anxious somehow of how different you were acting, I think really shows how close this community
Yeah,
truly is.
but I think that
And I think that,
I mean, just for the fact that they allowed me and I said, like, allowed, not as if I was a prisoner, but they encouraged me to take that moment off. I think that it was overdue, and I think that everybody understood that, even though
yeah.
we maybe nobody was really conscious of just as much of a mess I was,
Yeah.
but I think that just to have that support, and then being welcomed by Philip and Gio and Tangier, and then it was like slowly seeing lights and embracing it,
Yeah.
and that was like a slow process that allowed me to start writing about the real issues
Yeah.
and to face them for real.
Yeah. And now almost, I think I said 2 years earlier, but it's actually 3 years.
Yeah.
And so now 3 years after that moment, after meeting them, after exiling yourself in Tangier, basically, they were there at your concert in Paris
Oh, yeah,
to
I
see
was
you
so
play. It
nervous.
was the first time that they would see you.
Yeah.
But for you, do you feel like it has somehow completed a circle of some sort?
No, I won't say that, because I don't want this to be completed. I mean, this is like a stream of life that keeps feeding itself, and feeding others as well. But the thing is, like, seeing them, like Gio, Philip, Galopin, and so many of my friends, friends that I've been so blessed to be around in my time in Tangier. And I think not only that, but we skipped like a big part in that story, is the fact that the rest of the band came to Tangier, and I was
That's
able
true.
to
Yeah.
introduce, and that was a big challenge, and that was kind of a risky move, because
To
we weren't
introduce the band members
no,
to your friend in Tangier?
just for everybody to get in the same room again,
Oh,
because we
Okay.
were at the point where that we didn't know much about each other, and then that's something that I realized, that
even though you had spent
we
12
were
years.
always together,
Yeah.
but we were kind of feeding a fantasy that was allowing each other to kind of maintain their roles, and to be in the machine, and to keep feeding that. And so I kind of knew by inviting everybody home that it would be either like the end for a new beginning or the end for something that wasn't involving anybody else.
Yeah.
So, and that was a big,
It
that
was
was
either
really, that was really
renewal
tricky
or
because,
yeah.
and risky, because then you're just like, okay, well, you're putting your life on the line. You're
Yeah.
putting like, and we weren't communicating much at that point, and we weren't talking about, okay, what's the next step for your favorite enemies anymore. I was really in my thing, writing. I was contemplating like doing like scores with Ben. So I was like really dangerously
Going into
moving in a different
rapidly
direction,
moving in
and
direction. Yeah.
and it felt good. And that was very risky for the rest of the band because
But
not because
what-
they needed me, because I mean
but-
they're so good, but for me I was like, I'll never go back to what it was, and
But
I
this
didn't
is,
know how those guys would, if they're still the same, it's over.
And this is what makes me curious because you were going into a new direction and you knew it and you were conscious of it and it felt good for you, which obviously, in general, people will go for what feels good. But even then, you decided to invite all the other band members, knowing that it could break everything apart. Everything that you knew,
But
you thought
everything
you
needed
had.
to be
But
everything
what
needed to
made
be
you
like
take the decision, like,
wiped out.
whatever feels good, I'm going to push it aside and I'm going to go back to in that direction I didn't like before. I didn't feel comfortable
But
anymore.
quite honestly, I really didn't overthink that whole mac of a situation, if I can say. For me, it wasn't like about, oh, I will follow what's good, and I don't want to go back. And for me, I was already in that process. For me, I was simply allowing myself to be who I am, and my heart for the others was to just to say, well, you allow me to come here to find myself. And not only I didn't, because
Yeah.
I didn't want to find myself, because I hated myself. So I just wanted to be honest with what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I didn't care much about, so who should I be, how should I behave. And for me, it was like hoping that everybody coming would not only like witness that, but would be inspired to do the same for their own lives, because I love those guys, and I know they loved me. We weren't able to to support each other with that kind of honest love, because we were all trying to keep that little thing for ourselves in order to survive. But by inviting everybody, it was like, well, this is, if we have to do it, it needs to start here. So everybody came, and so the transition was a bit weird, and we didn't really know. And I think that people were a bit uncomfortable around me at that point, because it was clear that I was completely transformed.
And they hadn't seen you in a while too. When you
haven't seen
invited
me in a
them over.
while, and I had new friends, new environment, which was very different, because all our friends are common friends.
Yeah.
So because our life is
It's
being one,
so- yeah.
So introducing my new friends to them and telling them, well, if my new friends don't like you guys, it's because you're a fake. And if you're coming with your fake and the masks like we always wore before, well, don't bother, because I won't keep myself from going and to keep building those relationships with my new friends,
Yeah.
just to cover you up like we always did for each other.
Yeah.
Because
That was-
it's not only my lie was theirs, and it was the same for
It was
them with
everybody
me.
covering
Exactly.
everybody
So
up.
and that took like a little bit of a transition, and then we were able to talk about issues that we had in a band that we never talked about, all those weird things that happened, and that created some kind of a strange behaviors that we just allowed and let grow, and so it was like, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to
Yeah.
be part of it, and I don't even want to see it. and it was very intense, and we had like very, very real conversations, and at any moment everything could have been like broken forever. And it's until we realized that we were freaking broken already that we said, okay, let's keep the good parts and let's see what we can build again. Not to try to fix things like we always did by just like denying everything, but just like say, okay, well, let's keep what's real, what's really matters, and then let's build from there. And I think it changes the whole spectrum, and slowly we found ourselves like jamming like we did the first time, like 12 maybe more ago. And we realized, wow, this is the very first time we've been in the same room playing music for about like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And that was kind of crazy, but it felt good, and
It's quite a
and we
realization,
kept going because that freedom was that gift, and was an invitation, and you take it or you don't, but we won't go back anymore.
Yeah.
So, and
But
that
at
was
that
the
point,
thing.
it's also-
That was the thing, and that's why being on stage like that after that long answer, being on stage in Paris in front of our friends from Tangier it wasn't even about me. It was about us, because they met our friends. It was very special. It was very intimate, and it was great.
Yeah.
But I was nervous. I was like, okay,
I can imagine. Yeah.
okay. But the most beautiful thing they gave me was freedom. Just be yourself. You're enough. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to. You don't have to be a character. You don't have to over try. You don't have to do crazy things. You know, you don't have to if you're throwing yourself from like the second floor balcony, do it because you want to do it. Don't do it because it feels like you have to do it like it was before. Just
We've
be
never
yourself.
seen that yet with Alex Henry Foster. But you know,
About what?
I've-
About throwing myself from the second floor balcony?
Yeah, not yet. This is why I'm saying yet, because
Yeah, that's why I've got so many instruments.
I've been
to keep me
able
busy.
to see all of your live shows as Alex Henry Foster, and almost all of the ones that you did with your favorite enemies, and I've been very blessed to follow you guys on tour.
Yeah, you've been around for quite a bit now.
Absolutely. Every year, I've missed one show as your favorite enemies, and that's it. But
Well, I'm very sorry it was our best one.
I've seen you since the very first concert as Alex Henry Foster. You seem to take a lot more freedom on stage, if I may say so. Of course, I guess the first concert is always something because it's the first time that you play live. But you keep adding instruments every time you play. Every show, every like gig that you play. How do you translate your emotions? Oh, well, is it something that you translate through instruments?
I don't know. I don't really think about those things anymore. Before,
No?
you know, we were in the different contexts with different people around us, and they were very toxic. But at the same time, it's very easy to blame others when when you should be in charge of your own life. And so, as long time ago, I started to play like guitars, and then some people say, well, you should keep being the frontman and this and this and this. But I think I'm not really thinking about that much. You know, I'm just like we just started with the keyboards because I needed like a place where I can feel like secure, and just like, okay, just to be there and to have like all my lyrics, my little world. And okay, so this is my place. This is the security place. And it's just like a baby when you need that blanket, you know, and just like, okay, well, as long as I've got my blanket, everything will be just fine. And slowly and
the keyboard
slowly,
is the safety blanket.
yeah, it's a safety zone right there. But I think that after I started to, as we were rehearsing, and it just felt right to pick a guitar, and then just to start doing things with it in the way I was hearing it, and then another one, and things like that, and it didn't really matter. Does it make
It just
sense or
came
not? Am I
natural
good
and-
enough or not? It just I have like, I think I have more tapes on that little Moog that, like, the whole history of rock and roll had tapes on instruments. So I've got like colors, and not only colors, I've got numbers as well, just to make sure that I know where I'm going,
And shapes.
how to navigate, and with the guitar as well. And once it's on, it's no longer about the tapes. But don't
Yeah.
remove those tapes. I don't need them, but don't you dare removing any of them. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
But it's all right. It's okay. It's okay. I'm insecure. I'm scared. That's all right. I don't care. I can say that. I don't have to be like, I think that what really, really helped me, and it's funny, and it's such a blessing to be back on the road with those guys. It's like looking at Trail of Dead. They're fearless. They're freaking fearless. They couldn't care less. They are who they are.
Yeah.
And that's something that when we first went on tour with those guys, not only was I a fan before, but I was like, those guys are fucking, like, I'm sorry, I should say that. Though we'll edit.
We're gonna edit.
Those guys are freaking superheroes. They're just so fearless. And I was like looking at them, and I was like, this is what I want. This is what I want for my life. But at the same time, in the process of it all, I just realized that, well, they are who they are.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll never enjoy being fearless. And maybe I don't have to.
Yeah.
And maybe that's emancipation right there. Just
Yeah.
to acknowledge that and stop just like pretending.
It's about knowing who you are.
Yeah,
And
and
embracing
maybe
it,
in a
and-
year or
yeah.
two, it's gonna be like a different story. But today,
It's about evolving.
every moment is, it's a challenge. Okay, I need just like when we went to New York to do those showcases and those
Yeah.
shows, the radio, and before Jeff, we were just right before like playing the extra date we had in Montreal, and Jeff came and said, "Hey man, we're invited to do like Paste Radio. It's amazing." But at the same time, 12 years of Your Favorite Enemies reminded him that, oh yeah, it's true. Maybe Alex won't be that keen about
Yeah.
it, because wait, we haven't rehearsed for that setup. I need to see the place. I need to really make sure that I'm going to be comfortable. So I was coming with so much things to be dealt with.
With a baggage. Yeah.
So, but I said, yeah, cool, let's do it. And he said, really? Yeah. It's amazing. Let's do it. I said, are you sure? Yeah. Let's do it. I mean, that
Wait,
we haven't
I'm gonna
rehearsed.
ask for a fourth time.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Are
We
you
haven't
sure?
rehearsed that setup, and it's a small place, and it's you're in an environment where it's really like you're jumping right in, and you don't have like all the monitors that you want. And I said, yeah, let's do it. That's why before I had like so many things. I had like my in-ears, like a prompter, like sheets, and I had like, not only I had like prompters, I had like all my lyrics, and then I was coming with so many things just to be secure. So now I said, when we started, I said, no, I don't want in-ears anymore, and I don't want to hide with a prompter. I want to have my lyrics there. I want to do my things like that, and I don't care. This is what I need now, and this is what I want. The rest of it, I don't care. Do I look like weird? Does it feel weird? It feels weird until I saw like Michael Gira from Swans like having like words. I said, oh well, this guy is like beyond fearless. It's cool. So all right, that was like,
Yeah.
just
I'm not the only one like this, and then it's okay.
yeah,
Just
because
be who you are, and
I was so insecure about this. So okay, people are gonna look at me and say,
what are
okay,
peop-
why?
What are people gonna think?
Yeah, and I realized I was really like I was freaking captive. I was so I was freaking out with everything, and I just like, well, no, I just this is how it goes now, and we'll see how it goes, and that's perfect like that because that's who I am, and that's how I feel good, and I need it. Maybe one day I won't, but I rather just like embrace it and have fun.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. What was the question again?
I think we started with how are you?
Yeah.
And
Well, that's how I am.
well, thank you very much for your time, for your generosity, for all this honesty that you've shared with us again.
Was it too long? Everybody's
don't
like
feel
giving
like it's been
signs
too
and
long.
everything. Oh, we're only 50 minutes. 50 minutes in.
Yeah, I don't feel. I feel like it's been really interesting. But really, thank you so much for your honesty. I'm really looking forward to the next podcast that we're gonna have together. I don't know what direction it's going to take, but
That's
I'm
the
pretty
pleasure of
sure-
it. That's the pleasure of it.
And so, just before we leave, you will be playing in Cologne tomorrow, February 12th, and then you're in Bielefeld on the 13th, and then in Basel in Switzerland on the 14th. And then for another day off, which Scoop, we're going to have another podcast
Great.
together. So thank you
If
very
you say
much,
so,
Alex.
I'll be here.
Thank you very much, Alex, and see you for
Thanks to you.
episode 2 of the Alex and Ray Foster podcast
Thanks
very
to you.
soon. Thank you.
Was I mimicking too much? I mean,
You were perfect.
I'm already I'm fearful now.
You were perfect. Thank you
I'm just
very
kidding.
much.